there, Daniel Hadaway here, aka the Drum Coach, and today I want to show you something that I feel like a lot of people miss when it comes to tuning drums. Now I've got a snare drum here, but this really works for any drum, top or bottom head, and it's something that I've shared with a few drummers, and every single one of them has been like, wow, no one's ever talked about this before, and I've been on YouTube looking around or here or there and never see this talked about. And so I thought, well, if they haven't heard of it, maybe you haven't as well. And so I want to show you how I start tuning my snare drum. Now, it always surprises me when people tell me that they haven't heard this before, because we spend so much time working on, tapping around the drum and trying to listen and hear the tone that we hear. But if we don't start in a good spot, all of that is a lot harder and sometimes can feel like it's impossible. So what I want to show you today is basically how I start tuning my snare drum. Now, one more thing is, you might notice I'm sitting on the floor, and I know that many of you probably already know this, but if you don't, sitting on or putting your drum on a carpeted surface is really the best way once you get into actually tapping around and trying to hear the different tones between the different tension rod positions or the lug positions. By sitting it on a carpet, you can actually hear just the one head that's on top instead of both heads resonating at the same time. So that's why I'm sitting on the floor. But anyway, I want to show you this, and this is how I start out tuning all of my drums when I put a new head on. Now this is a used head, doesn't really matter. What's interesting to me is this. So most of us talk about finger tightening. So I've got this lug right here loose, and normally what happens is we finger tighten to get started when we're putting on a new head. So we'll use our fingers and we'll screw it down until we can't tighten it anymore. And so I've got it there right now and it's tight. That's normally the way we do it. We do it by feel. Well, the problem with that is that there's a million different things that can go on between each of these lugs to make the point at which this stops turning be different. So the thing is that we don't really care about how tight these screws are. We want the head tension to be as even as possible when we start. So doing this, finger tightening all the way around, is not really the most accurate thing. Some of these could be rusty if we have old vintage drums. The threads could be a little bit differently aligned or something like that, depending on how well made the lugs are. This might sound silly, but our fingers can get tired. As you go around squeezing and going around each one of these, your fingers can get tired, or you might not be the best judge of exactly how tight each of these is. All of that to say that these tension rods, if you're just judging based on how these feel, that's not a good place to start if you're trying to get everything kind of an even playing field to start tuning the drum. So here's what I do instead. So I'm going to loosen this guy back up a little bit, and hopefully you can see this here on the camera that I've got set, the other camera I've got set up. So here's what I do, and this will be the same. So we start out with, of course, all of the lugs loose on the head, sitting up off of the rim here. So this is what I do. I take a drum key and I slowly turn the lug down, and I turn it until you can kind of see it, but until it just makes full contact and I start feeling tension there on the rim and everything else. So it's you can actually, if you look closely, and I think this camera can pick it up, there's a point at which there's the lug and then there's a washer in here as well. Right when those all make contact, there, I can feel it, and you'll feel it too in your drum. But that point is the point at which you're actually starting to put tension on the drum. So on the drum head, sorry. So I get to this point, and then I go to the next lug and I do the same thing, and I go around in a circle till I get back to the beginning. And you might feel silly, but I actually lean down to the drum like this and look as closely as I can, and I turn it till just when I make contact with all three parts, the lug, the washer in this case, and the actual rim itself. When all three are making contact and I can tell that I'm actually starting to put tension on the head, that's when I stop. So then I go around the whole head one time, get back to where I started. Then the key is you don't stop there. You actually do this again. So I'm going to show you what I do. Let's say I've done that. So I've gone all the way around the head and I've gotten back to where I started. Now what I do is I actually back that lug out, back to where it's loose again and it's separated out from the different pieces of the rim and the washer and all that stuff. Then I actually tighten it back down. Basically do the same thing again where I feel it tighten up again, or I can see it tighten up. Sorry, I'm not doing it by feel. I'm really doing it more by the sight of all three pieces making contact and starting to put tension on the head. Then I go around the drum and do that again. So I back every single one out, and then I go back and I get it so they all meet and they're putting tension on the head. The reason why I do it a second time is that as you go around the head the first time, things kind of shift, and so something that was tight earlier, when you come back around to it, might be a little extra tight now. Things kind of move. So I do it twice. So I tighten it and make contact all the way around, get back to where I started, then I loosen it and tighten it again all the way around. And if you do that first, if you get everything kind of set there, that's a pretty even spot to start. That's about as even, I think, as you're gonna get when you start tuning your drums. Then at that point, you can start doing the thing where you might use 2 drum keys and you do like an 8-lug drum, you do the plus, I call it the plus and then the X pattern. So you do plus, plus, XX or whatever it is. If it's an 8-lug drum or a 10-lug drum, it's different. But anyway, if you can start at the point at which that tension on the head is even before you even start tuning the drum up, then you can just do even moves in an even way across the whole head. And once you get it tuned up to the range that you want it in, chances are you're probably going to be, there's always inconsistencies in the way heads are made. They're getting better every day, basically, the technology they use to make these heads. But if you can get things started at an even spot and then use even moves to tune it up, you're probably going to get, I'd say 80%, maybe even 90% of the way there as far as the drum being in tune. Really, theoretically, if you can do this beginning spot well, then you don't even have to, you could theoretically not even use your ears to tune the drum as far as even tension goes. Now, of course, you're going to want to check that still. I'm not suggesting that you don't use your ears to tune a drum. But in a bind, let's say, you're in a loud environment or something, you're backstage at a club and you can't hear anything and you need to get this head switched out or whatever. That would be a way to do it where you can at least feel good about going on stage and starting out. It may not be perfect, but it's going to be so much closer than where you would have started if you just kind of did this thing, and then just started tuning it, and then you just hope you got it right and you can't hear anything. So who knows what's going on. So start from a good place. Top and bottom head, that works the same. Snare drum or toms, kick drum, this works for anything. If you enjoyed this tip, leave a comment. Tell me how you do it. If you think this is not the only way, this is not the best way, let me know, because I'm not about being the sole authority on this. I just want to start the conversation and hear what you think. Check out my website, danielhadaway.com. I've got tons of free stuff, including free backing tracks. If you want those, check it out, danielhadaway.com. Thanks for joining me today, and I hope this has been helpful for you in tuning your drums.